Let's talk about a go-home Raw, a holiday SmackDown, and predict some balls. What is up? GoodMicWork back at you with episode 440. Jesus, man. I'm going to have to start preparing for episode 500 soon. These are just flying by. But anyway, I'm up here to review the July 3rd and 4th edition of Raw and SmackDown, and I'm going to predict this Sunday's Great Balls of Fire pay-per-view coming to us on the WWE Network. I'm going to jump right into things here because I don't want to spend too much time on this commentary tonight. I want to finish up the Q&A that I've been promising everybody. My hope was to have the Q&A up before this Great Balls of Fire predictions video, but unfortunately, I'm like 95% done. It's just not quite done yet, and I didn't want to postpone this episode, so what I'm going to do is just hang on to it, wrap it up in the next couple of days, and I'll probably wait to upload it until after Great Balls of Fire because even though it'll be ready probably Saturday or Sunday, I don't want to upload videos back to back. I really hate doing that. And on Sunday night, following the Great Balls of Fire pay-per-view, I will be up here with a reaction video. So you're already going to get me in a couple of days anyway. So maybe I'll release the Q&A a day or two after that. So look for it within the week here. I promise you it's actually done this time. And I'm very, very sorry for the delay. Let's not waste too much time because we have a ton of shit to get into tonight. Let's do things a little bit different this week and shake things up and talk about SmackDown first. Generally, when I do my Raw and SmackDown reviews, I always start with Raw because Raw happens first on Monday. But since I'm going to be combining my Raw review with my Great Balls of Fire predictions, I figured we will wait until the end to do that, and we'll talk about SmackDown first and get that out of the way now. SmackDown, of course, came to us this week on July 4th, and the show was hyped as the return of John Cena. They've been talking about this for a few weeks. He was going to make his return to the company, to the roster, on the July 4th edition. He opened up the show and cut a promo and confirmed what we already kind of knew, and that is he is indeed a free agent. Apparently, he's going to be available to work Raw if the right scenario comes along. So I think WWE might be stalling here as far as what they do with John Cena. His promo was not that telling. All he did was cut a big emotional American man promo and talked about how he's not a part-timer, he's an all-timer, and he challenged everybody in the locker room and basically just went on in his John Cena type of way. And as he's running his mouth, he's interrupted by Rusev. Finally, we see Rusev return to SmackDown. He comes out, cuts a promo on the stage at John Cena. They exchange some words back and forth, and we would find out later on SmackDown that the two of them are now booked in a flag match of all things at Battleground. So the next SmackDown pay-per-view is later on this month, and Cena's going to be taking on Rusev again. As far as what the future holds for Cena, I think it's really up in the air. He called out a lot of people in his promo, talked about how he doesn't care if it's Brock Lesnar or Samoa Joe or Jinder Mahal or Randy Orton or AJ Styles or even Roman Reigns, and put a lot of emphasis in Roman Reigns. And I know WWE has been teasing this big dream match between the two, and I think there are two shows we could potentially get this match on. One is either in just a few weeks at SummerSlam or next year at WrestleMania. And I'm not even quite sure if WWE knows what they want to do yet, because the Brock Lesnar and Samoa Joe situation, which we'll talk about later on Raw, is over huge with the fans, and it's getting a lot of attention. And I think that match is going to be huge at Great Balls of Fire, and I think it's even going to be a locker room sellout. I think even the boys are going to be watching this match. It's huge. So depending on what goes on there, and Roman Reigns, of course, taking on Braun Strowman in the ambulance match, we'll know a lot more after Great Balls of Fire what direction WWE might go in. But right now, I'm not ruling out John Cena versus Roman Reigns at SummerSlam, which would be a good explanation for him taking on Rusev kind of in a random match. He's already feuded with Rusev multiple times throughout his career. This seems like it was a match just thrown together. Rusev is an opponent to give to John Cena to kill some time until they decide he either takes on Roman Reigns at SummerSlam or he takes on Jinder Mahal on SmackDown for the SmackDown title at SummerSlam. So I think where John Cena winds up as far as SummerSlam goes is still up in the air. I think I would like to see the match with Roman Reigns, but they might be saving that until next year at WrestleMania. We first heard the rumors of Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar next year at WrestleMania. I said at the beginning of the year, I called out Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam. I said that back in January. That could potentially still happen because we saw on Raw a couple of weeks ago Roman Reigns challenge the winner of Brock Lesnar and Samoa Joe. So everything is up in the air right now. I don't think we'll know anything until after this Sunday, where we will get a much better idea, maybe, of what the WWE plans on doing. But I think the Cena-Roman Reigns match is inevitable. I think that's a huge huge marquee match. I'm actually excited to see it whenever it does happen, and it might be next year at WrestleMania. And if that's the case, that's fine. I really don't care when it happens. You know, I guess time will tell, and we'll just have to wait and see what WWE's plans are for John Cena. But nothing really special in his promo, and the match with Rusev is not something that I'm really looking forward to because Rusev just got on the SmackDown roster. We really haven't even seen him yet, and I was hoping that SmackDown would be a rebirth for Rusev. I don't want to see him go out there and just have the same old match with John Cena and get beat again. The only silver lining in this is that this match is a flag match, so potentially Rusev could win this match without John Cena having to be pinned or submit. So maybe, just maybe, Rusev could actually win. I hope that he does, because if he just gets beat upon his arrival to the SmackDown roster, that's not going to do Rusev any favors on a brand that seems to like to give guys opportunities that haven't been there before. We've seen a lot of first-time champions on SmackDown, and we're likely to see some more. And I would hate to see Rusev have the same role on SmackDown that he did on Raw. I think he's way too good for that. So as most of you know, normally I always defend John Cena. He has never bothered me nearly as much as he has bothered everybody else, but this is a situation where I really do not want him to beat Rusev. But if he is going to go on to SummerSlam to face either Roman Reigns or challenge for the WWE title, how can he really lose this match? So it might suck either way, but I guess we'll wait until after Battleground to judge this match and this whole situation. AJ Styles had a one-on-one match with Chad Gable. The two of them are backstage talking to Daniel Bryan. They both want entry into the Independence Day Battle Royal later on that night that would main event the show to determine the new #1 contender for Kevin Owens' U.S. title. And Daniel Bryan says, look, you both can't be in there. Kevin Owens has actually beat both of you in recent weeks. So what I'm going to do is make a one-on-one match between the two of you. The winner is in the Battle Royal. And it turned out to be an awesome match. Chad Gable is a hell of a little worker. I like that they're putting him in some singles matches here or there on SmackDown. They might even be gearing up to break up American Alpha at some point. I don't know. But he's had a couple of impressive matches with Kevin Owens and now AJ Styles. And even after the match, after AJ beat him with the phenomenal forearm, I believe, he ended up helping him up and extended his hand to him. And they had a little show of respect there. So that was kind of cool. We also had the Carmella-bration. Of course, Carmella last week won the Money in the Bank briefcase for the second time with help from James Ellsworth. He didn't climb up the ladder and grab it this time, but he definitely interfered when he was banned from the building by Daniel Bryan. So Carmella is out there cutting her promo and celebrating. More good mic work by Carmella. I'm impressed with her ability on the microphone. She's really good. She's interrupted by Naomi, who came out there with the women's title is now glowing. They've personalized it for Naomi, and they've lined it with some glowy shit, and it actually looked pretty cool. And she came out there and did her dancing entrance, gets in the ring, starts talking shit to Carmella and to James Ellsworth, calls him Ellsworthless, and says that somebody else has some words for James Ellsworth. And then Daniel Bryan's music hits. He comes out to the ring, and he's basically out there to address James Ellsworth breaking the rules last week. He was banned from ringside by Daniel Bryan, and there's got to be consequences for that. So Daniel Bryan, I think, bans him from ringside again, also fines him $10,000 and suspends him for 30 days. And he says, if you don't leave the ring right now, I'm stripping Carmella of her briefcase. And she immediately grabs James Ellsworth by the hand and leads him out of the building. So he's gone for 30 days. And one can only assume that provided this isn't legit and he's not in any sort of trouble here, and they're going to bring this character back in 4 weeks, I think when Ellsworth returns, he helps Carmella cash in the briefcase. That's probably what they're going to do. Ellsworth will probably remain off of TV maybe until SummerSlam, and then Carmella ends up cashing in the briefcase. Maybe James Ellsworth makes a surprise return at SummerSlam during whatever women's championship match they have, interrupts the match in some way, or does something to compromise the champion, allowing Carmella to come out, cash in the briefcase, and win the SmackDown Women's title. I would almost guarantee that's what we're going to see. Speaking of Naomi, she had another very strange match with Lana. Lana got her third title match against Naomi. The first one came at the pay-per-view, and Carmella came out there with the briefcase to tease the cash-in. The second one, Lana was pinned, but apparently her shoulder was off the mat, so they booked a third one. And Naomi beat her in like 5 seconds, maybe even less than 5 seconds. Immediately locked her into a submission hold, and Lana tapped out right away. So Naomi made quick work of Lana again, and then in an interesting twist here, they had Tamina come out to the ring for some reason, and she stands between Naomi and Lana and tells Lana to get up, and she goes, come on, get up, let's go. And she basically walks back to the back with Lana. So I don't know what this alliance means. Maybe Tamina is going to teach Lana some toughness because she was kind of telling her to get up, and she was kind of taking care of her at the same time. So maybe Tamina is going to teach Lana how to actually fight or something like that. I don't know where this is going. I like the Lana character. I like that she has fallen into this Eva Marie role. I think that's a good character, and I think it can have some success. And she's not even as bad as I thought she was going to be in the ring. And don't get me wrong, she is as green as turtle shit, but still, she's better than what I thought she was going to be in my head. So, I don't even know where this is going to lead with Tamina, but it's interesting, and it left me scratching my head. And that's good, because at least it was unpredictable, and it was something that I didn't see coming, and maybe it can lead to something entertaining. We also had the big rap battle between New Day and the Usos. And this thing was fucking crazy. It actually got over pretty well. When they announced it last week, I was like, I don't know, this is probably going to be stupid. But it was pretty good. Both teams came out there with a huge entourage. The Usos looked a little bit more gangsta and a little more hardcore, where the New Day, they were just a modified version of Adam Rose's Rosebuds or whatever they were called. So it was a complete fucking circus, but there was some pretty good burns, and I cannot believe they went with the Xavier Woods joke. The Usos made some sort of rhyme or rap about don't get X-rated like your man Xavier, and the crowd just oohed and awed. My jaw dropped. I couldn't believe that. Apparently, WWE did edit that out of the replay, and there was some Rikishi talk, and there was a lot of good jabs back and forth, and the whole thing ended with the New Day kind of winning the rap battle, and Usos backed off or whatever, so of course they've got the big tag match at Battleground, but the rap battle was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I actually enjoyed it. We had Randy Orton actually losing a match to Aiden English. He went out there and completely beat the hell out of Aiden and got himself intentionally disqualified. He didn't even care. He just wanted to hurt somebody. Nailed him with the steel steps, picked him up and did that throw on the table that he's been doing to the Singh brothers lately, and just completely beat the hell out of him. And then after that, Jinder Mahal came out to the stage and cut a promo. Randy Orton cut a promo back, called him a jackass, and that was the end of that. And of course, they have their big Punjabi prison match at Battleground coming up in a couple of weeks. And I am going to assume that Jinder Mahal is going to retain the title. I see no reason to have Randy Orton win the belt in this type of match. It's Jinder's match. And that also leaves us with a lot of questions. Like I talked about earlier with John Cena, we really don't know what these guys are going to be doing at SummerSlam. And if Jinder does end things with Randy Orton in the Punjabi prison match, what does he do at SummerSlam? Who does he face? And he could very well face John Cena for the WWE title. I hope not, but that could very well happen, because if it doesn't, who else does he face? Who's the next guy for Jinder Mahal? AJ Styles would be cool, but he's probably going to win the U.S. belt from Kevin Owens. Shinsuke Nakamura would be cool, but I don't know if I see that happening either. So there's other candidates out there, but they're going to have to throw something together quick after Battleground to get that match set up and ready for SummerSlam. So it'll be interesting to see what the future holds for Jinder and who he faces next, provided he gets by Randy Orton. Breezango continued their brilliance on SmackDown, and this is one of the funnier skits that I've seen. Tyler Breeze is dressed up like a woman, and he approaches Ty Dillinger to get his thoughts and interview him about the Battle Royal coming up later on in the night. And Tyler Breeze says that his name is not Tyler, it's Tenay. It's Tenay Young. And I guess he's supposed to be dressed like Renee Young. He's got a dress on and a blonde wig and some makeup, and he's not a horrible-looking woman. Did I just mean to say that? Holy shit. But it was a pretty funny skit, and you've got Fandango in the back in like a construction outfit pretending to fix some shit. And Ty Dillinger kind of looks at him and says, I just hope that Breezango understands that in a battle royal they might have to face each other. And then they kind of look a little bit confused. And then he tells Tyler Breeze that he's a 10, and then says hi to Fandango as he walks off. Really funny skit. And the best part about it is immediately after that, the camera cut directly to Renee Young on the other side of the arena to also do an interview, and the look on her face was priceless. Absolutely hilarious. One of the funnier Breezango skits or interviews that we've seen so far, at least in my mind. I was literally laughing out loud at that. And of course, now we move on to the Independence Day Battle Royal. A couple of things happened before this. Mike and Maria were doing a promo backstage, and all of a sudden there's this loud crash, and Sami Zayn is over in the corner stretching, and he knocks over some steel bars or some shit like that. And it pisses off Mike and Maria, and they're yelling at him, and then Sami Zayn goes on to quote Huey Lewis for some reason, and then his music hits and he runs off. So Sami Zayn is kind of acting like the goofy character that he is, and he's going to be the first opponent, it looks like, for Mike Bennett, and is probably going to have to do the job for him. They've also been teasing the split of the Hype Bros. They had a segment backstage where Zack Ryder approaches Mojo. He has kind of a funny demeanor about him. He doesn't seem too into the conversation. Zack Ryder says something about, maybe putting putting something in their rearview mirror, and Mojo was like, yeah, that's a good idea. So they're definitely teasing the eventual split. Zack Ryder said he got them both spots in the Battle Royal, and Mojo thanked him for it. And then I think in the Battle Royal, who eliminated who? Was it Mojo eliminating Zack? I don't know who's going to go heel. I'm guessing it'll probably be Mojo. But yeah, right when Zack Ryder came back, I called that split immediately upon his return. The very first segment that he had with Mojo, I'm like, oh yeah, they're going to break up. But as far as the Battle Royal goes, AJ Styles, of course, he was the favorite to win, and he did. He ended up Pele kicking Sami Zayn off the apron to win the match. It came down to him and Sami at the end. Owens was on commentary for the whole thing. He jumped off headset and attacked AJ after the match. AJ fights him off and holds up the United States title to close the show. So, you know, he's going to be getting another shot now at Kevin Owens at the pay-per-view, and it should be a really good match. I really enjoyed their first one, and I didn't even mind the count-out finish. You know we're going to get a definitive winner this time, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if AJ Styles takes that belt off of Kevin Owens. I think WWE is interested in building the legacies of both of these guys. Kevin Owens is a former world champion, also United States champion, former Intercontinental champion. The only thing AJ has done so far is hold the WWE title, so they probably want him to get a few more titles on his resume. So, you know, my early prediction is that AJ will beat Kevin Owens for the United States title, and the two of them will have a nice little run and probably blow the whole thing off at SummerSlam, hopefully. So all in all, for a holiday SmackDown, it wasn't that bad. Normally, when these Raws and SmackDowns fall on holidays, when not as many people are watching, they're usually shit. But this show wasn't half bad, and I enjoyed it for what it was. Now let's backtrack and go to Raw, and we'll talk about the Great Balls of Fire pay-per-view as well. Raw opened up with a really good Enzo promo. Great promo of his life. I have been critical of Enzo in the past just because I don't get the character. It's so over the top. It's so crazy to me. I've never understood it. I never understand what he's talking about. I guess I'm just an old man and I just don't get that stuff or whatever. And I just never really, I mean, he had his moments. Don't get me wrong. Enzo was definitely charismatic. He's very good on the mic. It's just some of their stuff was getting old to me. And I thought that Enzo, as crazy as he was very one-dimensional. He was very hyper, looked like he was jacked full of Red Bull or crack or meth or something. And we didn't see many other dimensions of his character. On Raw, for him to open up the show, he came out there doing his normal intro and he's dancing all around and everything, but he cut a very, very emotional and serious promo. And he used the line that I coined last week. I tweeted out over a week ago that he has got to call Cass Casshole at some point. And he actually finished his promo with that line. A lot of people gave me credit on Twitter for that. And I don't think I was the only person to think of Casshole. I'm sure other people did as well. But to me, that seemed like an obvious line he was going to have to use. And this was just really good. I was proud of Enzo. Like, I really enjoyed his emotion. I really enjoyed his realism, his passion, and his intensity on the mic. I thought it was all really well done. And they are going to have a match, apparently, at Great Balls of Fire, one-on-one. And Enzo might be in some trouble. But it got me brainstorming about this feud because one thing I mentioned during the initial breakup is that where is this going to leave Enzo? Because clearly this breakup is done to help launch Cass. He's a monster. He's got so much potential. WWE probably sees dollar signs in this guy, and they want to push him as a big heel. He's going to have to kill Enzo. Unless Enzo comes up with a very creative way to beat him, unless Enzo runs him over with a car, I don't see how they can have Enzo win this match without destroying Cass in the process. So Cass is probably going to have to win this thing, and he's going to have to win the feud overall, you would think. And if that's the case, what do they do with Enzo? So I was trying to think of a situation or a scenario where they could maybe move Enzo over to SmackDown, because if he went over there, he's got some potential feuds. And the very first guy I thought of was James Ellsworth, because wasn't Carmella with Enzo and Cass back in NXT? So, you know, Enzo is a babyface and Carmella's a heel, but if she eventually goes babyface or she turns babyface somehow, or maybe Enzo ends up coming out and he's a love interest for Carmella, and Enzo and Ellsworth can have a feud together, and then Enzo is working with somebody more his size. And Enzo can completely humiliate Ellsworth and get him completely out of the picture, and maybe Enzo and Carmella can form an alliance on the SmackDown brand. That could be a direction that they go in eventually. But if Enzo and Cass have their feud, Cass kills him, what does Enzo do on Raw after that? So I was trying to think of other things for Enzo to do after his program with Cass, because to me, it's going to leave him out in the cold once this whole thing is over. But for right now, it's very good stuff. I thought the breakup was done well. I thought the second breakup was done well. All of the promo work by Enzo and Cass, but especially Enzo, has been phenomenal in this, and props to both of them. Hopefully this leads to very big things in both of their singles careers. The other big angle that we saw on Raw, there was a couple of them. The other one that I really liked was the Samoa Joe and Brock Lesnar interview. At first, I thought they had pre-taped this last week when they were in LA, because I thought it was very strange that they flew Brock Lesnar in and burned one of his appearances for a backstage interview, like a split-screen interview. I thought it was like via satellite. I thought Brock was at home. No, they were both in the same building. And what I liked about this interview is it didn't last very long. Two very different styles here. You got Samoa Joe angry and pissed off, and he's complaining about the interview. Let's just get this thing over with. He starts talking trash right from the get-go. Brock Lesnar is very laid back. He's got a smile on his face during the whole thing, and he's like, Joe, calm down. I know what you're trying to do. I used to be you. I used to be the young, hungry guy that challenged all of the big dogs in the WWE, and I beat them all. I've been where you've been. And Samoa Joe doesn't want to hear any of it. He just wants to fight. Come on, Brock, let's go fight right now. And Brock is like, dude, I'll see you Sunday. Don't worry about it. You're going to get your chance to get your hands on me. You just have to be patient. So I really liked that one guy couldn't sit still and was very intense, and the other guy, the champ, was cool, calm, and collected and wasn't sweating Samoa Joe at all. Very good stuff. Samoa Joe ends up losing it and storms off of the interview set and goes to find Brock Lesnar, walks through the backstage area there in Phoenix, ends up coming to the room where Brock is being interviewed, and the whole entire roster, security guards or something like that, is holding Samoa Joe back. I thought this was a really good way to further this feud. I was worried that this week's Raw, the Go Home Raw, would suck because last week in LA was so awesome with Samoa Joe choking out Brock Lesnar. I thought this week was really going to fall flat, and I really didn't mind the backstage interview. I actually thought it was good. A lot of times when they do these type of split-screen promos between two guys, it's never very good, but Samoa Joe made it good. I cannot say enough good things about Samoa Joe, and I think WWE is taking notice. This is the first match I can think of in a long time that everybody is interested in. The build is good. It feels right. It feels like it's going to be a fight. Joe is believable. You actually believe that this guy is a quality contender for Brock Lesnar's title. What sucks is I have to give a prediction on this here in just a little bit, and it's tough to pick a winner in this thing, especially with the rumors of this just being a one-off, a one-and-done match. I've been saying right from the start, I've been saying since the day that this match was announced that there is no way that this can be one and done. The build is too good. The suspense is too good. Unless you have Brock Lesnar go out there and just annihilate Samoa Joe, hit him with 24 German suplexes and pin him in 5 minutes, that's the only way this thing can end at Great Balls of Fire, and I don't see that happening. I'm not sure if I see Samoa Joe winning either. I talked about all of the different scenarios for John Cena at SummerSlam. These two guys have a whole bunch of different scenarios as well. We've heard the Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns rumors for SummerSlam. We've heard Brock Lesnar versus Braun Strowman rumors at SummerSlam. But given the success of this feud with Samoa Joe, I'm starting to think that we're going to get a Samoa Joe and Brock Lesnar rematch. If that happens, you might have to go with a shitty finish. You might have to go with some sort of a non-finish. Or you have to go with a fucked up ending. Remember when Undertaker low-blowed Brock and then locked him in the Hell's Gate and Brock gave him the finger as he passed out? If they do some sort of a finish like that where one guy loses but it's under shady circumstances, they can always come back with a rematch. Or they can have a big double disqualification. They can have a double count out. They can have another pull apart. Both guys can be counted out and the entire roster has to come out and separate them. And it can just be this crazy ass brawl where you have another match at SummerSlam, possibly even with a stipulation involved for the title. And that's when Joe wins the belt. You know, right now, whatever they do at Great Balls of Fire, whatever the outcome is, it has to set up another match. To me, this shit is too good to end at Great Balls of Fire. This thing needs to blow off at a big pay-per-view. WWE has got another big star on their hands now. Imagine what a victory over Brock Lesnar could do for Samoa Joe and his status on the roster. Samoa Joe is full-time, and I don't know if it's that feasible for him just to beat Brock in July at Great Balls of Fire, because I still think even with Brock Lesnar being back now for 5 or 6 years, however long he's been back in the company, it's still a big deal to beat Brock. It's not just a random thing that happens. So when you beat Brock, it needs to be meaningful. And Great Balls of Fire, stupidest name for a pay-per-view ever. I think maybe Brock escapes Balls with the title and drops to Joe at SummerSlam. I know a lot of people really want to see Joe win on Sunday, and he might. But if it was up to me, I'd try to hold it off. I'd have Brock Lesnar win, but have Samoa Joe have an argument that he could have won the match. Maybe something happened, referee's knocked out, and he's got Brock Lesnar choked out, and maybe the referee comes to, or a second referee comes down later on just in time for Brock to F5 Samoa Joe and pin him, and then Joe comes out the next night on Raw and beats the shit out of a whole bunch of people and holds the show hostage and grabs the referee by the neck and says, I will snap this motherfucker's neck if you guys don't give me a rematch against Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam. And they're like, okay, fine, or whatever. So I think we could see something like that if I had to guess. But one thing is for sure, like I've said time and time again, I would be very, very surprised if Brock Lesnar goes into Great Balls of Fire and beats Samoa Joe clean in a 15-minute match. I just don't think we're going to see that, and I think it would be really stupid if the WWE did that. So there's got to be an in-between. You can't just beat Joe and you can't just beat Brock. You have to set up a rematch somehow, and Brock just lost less than a year ago. He got beaten 5 seconds by Goldberg at Survivor Series. I think when you beat Brock, you need to space out these defeats, and you should at least hold it off until SummerSlam. So that's my opinion. I'm really curious to hear what all of you think about this. The other big angle, I just mentioned these two guys a minute ago, was Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns apparently was not supposed to be on the show. Braun Strowman approached Kurt Angle backstage, says he wants to fight somebody. And Kurt Angle's like, no, you're going to get Roman Reigns in the ambulance match, and, nobody's going to fight you tonight. Nobody wants to fight you. And Strowman threatens Kurt Angle and says, I'm going to go out to the ring. You better have some competition for me. He goes out there for the main event, takes on Apollo Crews, and completely kills him. Jesus, when Apollo Crews tried to do that backflip thing and Strowman just kicked him right off and he landed in the ropes, that was pretty good. I loved when Braun Strowman licked his head. Holy shit, was that badass. I mean, Strowman is an absolute monster. He really is truly a monster. I am scared shitless of him. He has Apollo Crews beat multiple times, lifts him up before the count of 3 more than once, just beats the shit out of him, eventually winds up beating him and kicks the hell out of Titus O'Neil as well, and then picks up Apollo Crews' carcass and walks it to the ambulance that they have set up on the side there and throws him in the back of it and tells the ambulance to leave. But the ambulance doesn't leave. And he's looking around, and I think he opens the front door, and I think Roman Reigns was hiding in the driver's seat, and he jumps out and ambushes Braun Strowman. A brawl ensues. These guys are fighting all over the stage, and eventually Roman Reigns spears Braun Strowman off of the stage through a couple of tables in a pretty good spot to close the show. So, of course, we've got the ambulance match coming up at Battleground, which I'll talk about in a minute, but if we knew what WWE was going to do with these guys at SummerSlam, it would be really easy to predict this match, but right now we don't know. If Roman Reigns is going to face Brock Lesnar for the title, then he's got to beat Strowman. I'm sorry. If Strowman faces Brock for the title, then he's got to beat Roman Reigns. It just depends. And much like the Punjabi prison match and the flag match and all of this shit, luckily for us, this is an ambulance match, and if Roman Reigns does beat Braun Strowman, which I think he probably will, they can probably do it in a way where Braun Strowman can remain a monster, and it won't damage him too badly for the most part. At least that's my hope, so we'll have to wait and see there. We had a great one-on-one match between Finn Balor and Cesaro. The Hardy Boys were on commentary for this. The Drifter came out there and interfered because apparently he's going to be starting a feud with Finn Balor. The Hardy Boys jump off a headset to go jump Elias Sampson during the match. Everybody is out there fighting with each other. Balor winds up winning with the coup de grace after all of the outside interference dust settles. And it was a pretty entertaining match because everybody was out there brawling with each other, and there was a few good spots. But the big news here is the Hardy Boys are going to be taking on Sheamus and Cesaro at Great Balls of Fire again for the tag team titles, and earlier on in the night backstage, Kurt Angle made that match a 30-minute Iron Man match. So that's going to be the big stipulation for the Hardys and Sheamus and Cesaro. And there's still talk about Matt Hardy becoming broken sometime in the future. There has been some more news on that. It looks like maybe they're making some progress with Anthem and TNA and Impact or whatever the fuck they're called now. And it looks like maybe, just maybe, and there's a really good chance that sometime in the future Matt will be able to use the broken gimmick. He's still doing the delete thing with his arms. He's been tweeting some very cryptic tweets that it's becoming harder and harder for him to contain his broken brilliance, and it's going to finally come out at some point. So I got the feeling that Matt Hardy will become broken sooner rather than later, and that means that he has really no reason to win the tag team titles with his brother Jeff. So I'm hoping that Sheamus and Cesaro retain at Great Balls of Fire. We had another Miz TV segment as well. He's out there with his Miz Taraj. Very happy to see Maurice out there. I was really worried that they were going to be splitting up Miz and Maurice. I think that would be a huge mistake. Miz got a chance to talk some more shit about LeVar Ball. I went on kind of a rant on LeVar Ball in my last commentary, and I am still stunned how many people disagree with me. I'm stunned by it. TVTrax put up my clip of that. And the likes outweigh the dislikes, but not by much. You know, there's a lot of people that disliked that. And I didn't even read the comments. There's something like 400 comments on there or whatever. But some people were telling me that they were, some of the people in the comments were making it out to be like a basketball versus wrestling type of thing. That has nothing to do with it. And the TVTrax audience might not be familiar with me as much, but I love basketball. They've been listening to me over the years. I always talk about the NBA. I have nothing against basketball players. I have nothing against Lonzo Ball really at all. It's his annoying ass dad that just drives me crazy. This guy is such a shit talker, and I just think it's ridiculous. And so many people defend it and admire it, and I just think that's fucking crazy. And they're like, yeah, he's just doing his thing and he's trolling everybody and he's getting attention. I understand all of that, but it's just such a horrible distraction for your sons. And they're just such a circus family. And I made the comment last week that they remind me of the type of family or celebrity that would do a reality show. And sure enough, somebody posted on my Twitter feed today some article from ESPN that in fact the Ball family is going to have a reality show. So they're just they're the basketball version of the Kardashians. I wouldn't be surprised at all if one of them winds up marrying one of those sluts. So I'm just not a fan of LeVar Ball, but I really didn't mean anything personal. To me, I just thought the segment was ridiculous. I thought LeVar Ball is ridiculous. I think he's a completely crazy person, and I gave him a little bit of shit, and a lot of people disagreed with me. So I'm completely blown away by the fact that this guy is actually admired. I just think he's fucking obnoxious and annoying and stupid, and I just hated the segment. And you could tell the Miz was mad. He was talking more shit about LeVar Ball. WWE loved the publicity. I mean, it was all over the place. All that shit last week was all over ESPN and all the sports websites, so it was great publicity for the WWE. But I'm glad it's over, that's for sure. Dean Ambrose interrupts this whole segment along with Heath Slater, and Heath Slater also wants a shot at the Intercontinental title, so Kurt Angle decides to make an Intercontinental title match not only at Great Balls of Fire between The Miz and Dean Ambrose, but also between The Miz and Heath Slater right there on Raw. And The Miz has to wrestle this match in a suit, in like street clothes. He's not prepared to wrestle, but he still manages to beat Heath Slater with the skull-crushing finale after Rhino mixes it up with the entourage outside the ring, and Miz eventually gets the victory there and retains the title. Ambrose was on commentary for the whole thing. He then hit the ring and started fighting with everybody, and he's overcome by the Miz Taraj, and the three of them beat the hell out of Ambrose to close out the segment. So I really hope that the Miz hangs on to that belt at Great Balls of Fire. Goldust also had a segment. He was in the ring to introduce the movie trailer for his Shattered Dreams production or whatever the hell it is, and it was basically just a montage of him turning on R-Truth and kicking the shit out of him last week. And when the lights come back on, Goldust is in the middle of the ring in his director's chair. R-Truth is standing directly behind him, laughing and eating popcorn, which was a really funny visual, and then the two of them started brawling. And what I found surprising here is when I went on WWE.com and looked at the Great Balls of Fire card, I don't see Goldust and R-Truth on there. And I also don't see a kickoff match on there either. So right now we've got 8 matches, I believe, announced for the pay-per-view. One of those could be bumped to the kickoff, or they could do Goldust and R-Truth in a surprise kickoff match, which I mentioned right from the start. Right when Goldust made his heel turn, I was happy about it, but one thing that I was hoping for is that it would not be a kickoff match against R-Truth, and that might actually be what we see. Unless they hold it off and actually do a match between them at SummerSlam, but I doubt it. Seth Rollins beat Kurt Hawkins in just a few seconds. He cut a promo on Bray Wyatt, hyping their match at Great Balls of Fire later on in the show. Bray Wyatt cut an outdoor daytime promo in the middle of the desert somewhere in Arizona, so nothing much to report there. They, of course, have their match at Great Balls of Fire as well. A couple of cruiserweight matches. Cedric Alexander beat Noam Dar, and Neville beat Mustafa Ali. Other than that, we just had a women's tag team match. Sasha Banks and Bayley took on Nia Jax and Alexa Bliss. Bayley got injured earlier on in the match, very early, and had to be carried away from the ring by the referee. So essentially it was a handicap match, Sasha taking on Nia and Alexa, and she won. Sasha Banks actually beat both of those ladies in a handicap match. So overall, I thought Raw was solid for a holiday weekend when not as many people in the US are watching. I thought Raw and SmackDown both delivered in decent ways. Both shows were better than I thought. I thought that they were going to suck. Let's move on to the Great Balls of of Fire predictions now. I'm going to try to predict these rather quickly here. Neville taking on Tozawa for the Cruiserweight title. I'm going to predict Neville to retain. I said right from the start that he should hold this thing until SummerSlam, and I am not wavering from that prediction, so I'm going to go with Neville there. Enzo taking on Cass. Like I said, unless Enzo runs Cass over with a car or attacks him backstage and takes out one of his legs before the match, I don't see any way for Enzo to win this, because if he does, it kind of buries Cass. So I think Cass has to completely annihilate Enzo, so I'm picking Cass. Sheamus and Cesaro versus the Hardy Boys. I want Sheamus and Cesaro to win. I hope they retain the title because I really want the Hardy Boys to move on to the broken gimmicks, especially Matt. If the Hardys go broken, in my opinion, they don't need the belt. So I'm going to predict Sheamus and Cesaro to retain. I'm also going to predict Bray Wyatt to beat Seth Rollins. I think Bray Wyatt needs this victory. And I don't know what Seth Rollins and Bray Wyatt are going to do at SummerSlam, but I kind of think they're going to continue to work together more, maybe one more match if that happens. I think Bray Wyatt needs to win. I kind of feel like Bray Wyatt is going to do the typical Bray Wyatt type of thing. Usually when he has these big feuds with these other top stars, he does win a match. He just usually doesn't win the overall feud. So for Seth Rollins just to go into Great Balls of Fire and beat him, that's the easy prediction there. I think a lot of people are predicting Seth Rollins, but I think Bray Wyatt needs to find a way to win this match. And they have a rematch maybe at SummerSlam where the whole thing gets blown off. I don't think there's room right now for either of these guys in the world title picture. It's too jumbled up. So they're kind of with each other, I think, to kind of kill time. And I think eventually Seth will win this feud, but I think he's got to lose one here to Bray Wyatt. We've got Alexa Bliss, of course, defending the women's title against Sasha Banks. Now, it's becoming hard to predict some of these title matches because I don't really have anybody losing the belt. And I think we have to see at least one title change. But given what we saw on Raw and still the potential match between Nia Jax and Alexa Bliss in the future, I kind of think Alexa is going to retain and somehow find a way to beat Sasha Banks, maybe even with some help from Nia Jax somehow. Maybe even a Bayley heel turn. Who knows? She was knocked out of the match pretty early on Monday Night Raw. Maybe that was all a setup to have Sasha Banks have to face these two girls in a handicap match. It backfired. Sasha was able to win that. But maybe that's all the beginning of a Bayley heel turn, and she comes out at Great Balls of Fire and interferes and costs Sasha Banks the match. Maybe Bayley doesn't turn heel, but she costs Sasha the match unintentionally, and it leads to some tension there, and maybe Sasha goes heel. I don't know. But I would think at the end of the day, you got to go with Bliss, and I predict her to retain. The Miz versus Dean Ambrose. Here's another one. I really want The Miz to retain here. But if he retains, that means everybody's retaining their fucking belt. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to have a title change somewhere. But I'm really tired of seeing these two guys swap the Intercontinental title. I think the belt is better on The Miz than it is on Dean Ambrose. And I'm hoping that these two guys end this feud at this pay-per-view and The Miz retains. So I'm going to predict him primarily because that's what I want to see happen. Of course, we've got the big ambulance match, Roman Reigns versus Braun Strowman. I talked a lot about all the different scenarios with these guys earlier on, and like I said, it all depends on what they're doing at SummerSlam. And also, when it comes to the main event of SummerSlam, or the Universal title match, I should say, for SummerSlam, you could do a three-way. It could be Roman and Joe and Brock. That's a very big possibility. It could be a four-way. They could throw Strowman into that mix somehow and do Roman, Brock, Joe, and Strowman. I mean, that's a lot of beef in that ring. And I think it could be good. For four big giant guys like that, I actually think they could pull that match off. So don't rule anything like that out for SummerSlam either. But somebody's got to win this ambulance match, so I think I'm going to go with Roman Reigns. I did mention last week or the week before that potentially maybe it's a situation where they're fighting on the stage again. We saw Roman spear Braun Strowman off the stage on Raw. I had pitched the idea for that very same finish in the ambulance match, except instead of Roman spearing Strowman through two tables, he spears him through the roof of the ambulance. And it's also possible that both guys fall through the roof, and maybe it's a non-finish. And maybe both guys get driven away in the ambulance, and they're in side-by-side hospital beds. But speaking of non-finishes, I already have one in mind for Brock Lesnar and Samoa Joe. So as far as the ambulance match goes, I'm going to reluctantly pick Roman Reigns to win that. Now we're on to the Universal title match, Brock Lesnar versus Samoa Joe. I mentioned all the different scenarios for this as well. We could see a non-finish. We could see a fucked up finish where Samoa Joe gets screwed, or maybe even Brock Lesnar gets screwed. But like I said, when you beat Brock, it's a big deal. So whatever they do at Great Balls of Fire, I am going to predict Brock Lesnar to walk out as the champion. That doesn't necessarily mean he'll win. He could lose via countout. Maybe Samoa Joe chokes him out unconscious on the outside of the ring and Brock can't get back in. Maybe Brock goes nuts and gets DQ'd. Maybe Samoa Joe gets DQ'd. I have no idea. But whatever they do, I think Brock walks out of Great Balls of Fire with the title, but that the feud is not over. That's what we all have to hope for. I know a lot of people don't like the idea of non-finishes, but at least with a non-finish, it ensures and guarantees us another match, because you don't really want this to be a one and done. Aren't you guys enjoying this? Am I the only one that is enjoying this feud? So many people are determined to tell me that it's a one-off, and I wouldn't be so quick to say that. I think that these two guys in this feud has a lot of potential, and it's a very interesting match, and I don't think it's a match that you can have just once. I know I still have to pick a winner, so I'm going to say Brock Lesnar will win, but I'm not ruling out him losing via DQ or countout or something like that. I think anything can happen, provided Brock hangs on to the belt. But when you look at my predictions there, the only babyface that I predicted to win was Roman Reigns. So I am probably wrong on a few of these matches. I also didn't predict any title changes. I think that's going to be wrong. Somebody has got to win a belt. I really hope it's not Tozawa, because I want to see Neville continue his run. I really hope it's not Dean Ambrose, because I want to see The Miz continue his run, because I think he's a better IC champ than Dean. I don't want to see the Hardys win, because Cesaro and Sheamus are my favorite tag team in WWE right now, and I'm hoping the Hardy Boys go broken here in the near future. And as much as I want to see Samoa Joe win the Universal title and choke out Brock Lesnar and get launched, I'm not sure if Great Balls of Fire is the stage for that. I think they need to hold that off for something like SummerSlam. So I know that some of these predictions are wrong. I'm probably going to get at least 4 of these matches wrong, but sometimes you just have to wing it and predict some crazy shit. And I've got an awful lot of heels winning, and I've got no title changes. So we'll see how I fare in my predictions come Sunday. As of right now, I'm supposed to work, but I should be up here live tweeting. I plan on getting out of that somehow. I kind of forgot to make plans to be off for Great Balls of Fire, but between now and Sunday, I will work something out, and I fully expect to be home to live tweet throughout the show. If for any reason I'm not, stay tuned to my Twitter page at GoodMicWork for all of my plans on Sunday. But regardless of what winds up happening, I will be up after the pay-per-view, a few hours after it's over, to give you a reaction. Before I get out of here, I just want to mention a couple of other things. We had the big TNA Slammiversary pay-per-view over the weekend. I've only caught bits and pieces of this. I barely watched it at all. The big news is that TNA is merging with Global Force Wrestling. Jeff Jarrett, he left TNA. It's been so crazy. It's been so hard to keep up with what the hell's been going on with TNA in the past few years. Jeff Jarrett had a falling out. He left them, started his own company, Global Force Wrestling. They then partnered up or had some sort of a working relationship with Impact. Now they're merging the two companies, and they're going to rebrand the entire promotion as Global Force Wrestling. So TNA is dead. Impact Wrestling is dead. It is now going to be Global Force Wrestling. So Jeff Jarrett has wormed his way back into this company. He founded this company with his dad 15 years ago. I got to hand it to TNA. I mean, they've been such a mess over the past few years, and I cannot believe that they are still hanging on and they are still in business. And now it looks like there's at least some hope, with this rebranding and them unifying all the titles and merging with Global Force Wrestling. Maybe it's breathed a little bit more life into them, and maybe they have a chance to actually survive. I don't think they'll ever be a serious contender, ever, but maybe they can just stay in business, and that's the best that Global Force Wrestling can ask for at this point. And the reviews on the pay-per-view were not bad. A lot of you were telling me to check it out. I did see that Alberto El Patron beat Lashley to unify the two world titles, and I caught a glimpse of D'Angelo Williams having a wrestling match, and holy shit does he have potential. He was pretty damn good in there. I mean, his opponent sold really well for him, but his just raw athleticism was scary. You might want to give this guy a call and bring him into NXT. I think he's got a future. I was really impressed just the way he moved around out there. I mean, you give this guy some proper training and you give him some experience, he could be pretty goddamn good. New Japan has also been expanding into the U.S. They had a big show here in Los Angeles this past weekend. Jim Ross did commentary for this thing. And again, I've only caught bits and pieces. I have yet to really watch that event, but I've got it queued up on the computer, and I plan to watch it here real soon. Apparently, this expansion into the U.S. is going to continue, and they're going to do more of this because it was very, very successful. And speaking of Jim Ross, he's going to be doing commentary also for WWE with Lita in the Mae Young Classic that's going to air next month month, I think on the WWE Network. They're having a whole bunch of qualifying matches for this right now on NXT. A lot of great ladies from all over the world. Some of the unsigned talent and even a few gals from Japan are going to be competing in this thing, and it should be pretty good. If the Cruiserweight Classic was any indication, I'm sure these ladies will dazzle us just as well, and I'm really excited to watch the tournament. And finally, I just want to acknowledge the very sad death of the oldest Hart brother. Smith Hart passed away on July 2nd, which is ironically Bret Hart's birthday. Bret Hart turned 60 on July 2nd. A lot of you know that Bret Hart was my favorite wrestler growing up. Smith, I think, had prostate cancer, as does Bret. And he also had bone cancer, and he was in some pretty rough shape there in the past couple of years. If you go and look at photos of him, he was just really skinny. So sad what cancer does to a body and can do to a human being. And it's just fucking heartbreaking. But he was moved into hospice care. I think initially he was only given like a year to live anyway. So he wasn't going to last too long. And it's very sad that the Hart family is starting to crumble. A lot of them have passed away now. We've had several of the kids die. Stu and Helen are gone. Of course, the tragedy surrounding Owen Hart. And some extended Hart family members like Davey Boy and Brian Pillman and people like that have also passed away. So just very sad. So my heart goes out to the Hart family. Must have been a pretty crazy experience for Smith to be the oldest of all of those kids. I mean, there was 12 kids and he was the first. So rest in peace, Smith Hart. Your family is legendary, and I'm sure they're all mourning your loss. So that is going to wrap it up for me this week. I got to get out of here. Like I said, I'm going to finish up that Q&A. I'm going to have it ready and in the can and ready to release to you guys. I just got to figure out the best day to do that. So I will talk to you in just a few days. Leave me all your comments on SmackDown and Raw and Great Balls of Fire and SummerSlam, and even your predictions for the pay-per-view this Sunday in the comments section below. And I'll be really curious to see what all of you guys have to say. And I'll catch you late on Sunday night with my Great Balls of Fire reaction video, so keep a lookout for that. And I will talk to you then. Have a good rest of your week and take care. Until next time, peace.